Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Biology Today, where you can learn biology in a very simple, easy and innovative manner. We are going to learn and understand biology, which is going to help you in your school, your board as well as your competitive exams. So without any delay, let's get started. We will be starting with chapter number or unit number 1 of biology class 12, that is reproduction. Now, let's begin with a little introduction about unit number 1, class 12 biology reproduction. This unit contains 4 chapters. Chapter number 1, sexual reproduction in organisms. Chapter number 2, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Chapter number 3, human reproduction, and chapter number 4, reproductive health. Basically, reproduction is one of the vital processes without which no organism on this earth can survive for long. Whether it's human, whether it's plants, whether any living being reproduce, as we have already studied in class 11, chapter number 1, that reproduction is one of the defining characteristics of a living being. Each organism on its earth leaves its progeny, that is next generation, either by sexual mode or asexual mode before dying. Though sexual mode involves more variation, so the chances of survival enhances. So in this unit, we will be dealing with what does reproduction mean and what actually it does to our body with the help of examples and more. So stay tuned, stay continued. Let's begin with chapter number 1, reproduction in organisms. Reproduction is basically a biological process of producing offsprings, new progeny, new organisms from the existing organisms, which are more or less similar to the parent organisms or the existing organisms. What does it actually mean? That the already existing organisms act as parent, they reproduce, or we can say they undergo a biological process of producing offsprings, which is known as reproduction. Significance of reproduction is it ensures the continuity of species generation after generation. It means that the genes of parent organisms are transferred or given in heredity to the next generation after generation. Now, on the basis of involvement of parents, number of parents involved in reproduction, it is of 2 types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is defined as the mode of reproduction in which single parent is capable of producing new offsprings. One point to note, everyone, that you can make your notes side by side as these points are arranged, and you need not to be prepared or read NCERT to prepare notes. You can note down these points in your notebook. Continuing, asexual reproduction is basically a mode of reproduction or a method of reproduction in which single parent cell divides or it reproduces to produce new offsprings, new generation. As these offsprings are produced by single parent only, these are exactly similar to the parent organism as well as to the another copies produced. Therefore, they are known as clones. Now, what do you mean by clones? Clones are basically offsprings which are morphologically and genetically similar to their another beings as well as to the parent organisms. Asexual reproduction may or may not involve gamete formation. It depends on the organism whether it may lead to gamete formation or it may not produce gamete. Asexual reproduction is basically a characteristics of single-celled organism, example protists, moneron, amoebas, etc. etc. Next, types of asexual reproduction. What does asexual reproduction is? We have already studied that asexual reproduction is a method of reproduction or a mode of reproduction in which single parent, only one parent, divides to form new organisms. Now, types of reproduction. Type of reproduction. We have 5 types of reproduction, that is binary fission, budding, spore formation, fragmentation, and vegetative propagation. We'll be dealing of all these types one by one, so let's get started. But first of all, what do we mean by cell division? Cell division is when a single cell organism divides to form a new organism. That process is known as cell division. Next, what do we mean by binary fission? Binary fission is a mode of asexual reproduction or a method of asexual reproduction, which means that an organism asexually divides or cell divides into two equal halves. Mode of asexual reproduction where a cell divides into two equal halves and these two equal halves rapidly grows into an adult. For example, we have amoeba as shown in the figure and paramecium. Amoeba, like we can see in the figure, the parent cell consisting a single nucleus and cytoplasm divides. The first step takes place is the elongation of nucleus, that the nucleus first of all elongates. Then the cell body of the parent cell gets a constriction, that is it start to divides in from between, and then it divides into two daughter cells, that is two daughter nuclei. This is binary fission where a single cell reproduces asexually, divides into two equal halves, and the organisms then grows into an adult. Example, amoeba as shown in the figure and paramecium. Coming up to next, second type of asexual method or asexual reproduction we have is budding. Budding is a mode of asexual reproduction wherein organisms divide into unequal and small buds. These buds remain attached to the parent body until they get mature. What does it mean? That asexual reproduction takes place in an organism which grows out, meaning a part of the parent organism grows out as bud and it remains attached to the parent body until they get mature, which means that they get their whole nutrition from the parent body and get mature and then get detached to form a new adult organism. Example, yeast. You can see in the figure that the parent cell consisting of a nucleus grows out as a small bud. This small bud gets mature and then get detached from the parent body. Coming up to next, we have spore formation. Spore formation is a mode of reproduction where usually multiple fission, that is we have two type of fission, binary fission and multiple fission. We have studied this in smaller classes. That multiple fission, what does it mean? That here the organisms break into number of pieces or number of spores we can say, and each of this spore develops into another organism when they land on a surface. Until unless they are on a surface, they do not grow. When they reach the surface, they grows up into an adult organism. When they are in air, they cannot grow. Now again, spore formation is basically a type of multiple fission. In this, the parent organism develops a layer, as you can see, so spore formation in rhizobus. Parent organism develops develops a layer in which the organisms or the sporangium, which is shown in the figure, the sporangium divides into multiple pieces or spores. When favorable conditions appear, this layer, the outer layer which is known as cyst, cyst, breaks and spores are released into the air. Now when these spores land on a surface, they grow into a new adult. Next type of asexual reproduction or next method of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. In this type, the organism split into multiple fragments. The single organism splits into multiple fragments and each of these fragments develop into a mature organism. Example, we have Spirogyra. Now here what happens, a single organism accidentally or by means is divided into multiple fragments. Each part of the body of the organism cut is known as fragment, and these fragments grow up into a mature organism. Now this is basically a characteristic of multicellular organism. This is an exception case. Coming up to next, we have fifth or the last type of asexual method, that is vegetative reproduction. What does vegetative reproduction is actually? Vegetative reproduction is known as the asexual reproduction for plants. In all the before mentioned types of asexual reproduction, we were studying about animals, but vegetative reproduction is a type of asexual reproduction in plants. What happens in this case? Some of the parts of plant are capable of giving rise to a new plant part. These parts which are capable of producing new plant part is known as vegetative propagules, and the method of reproduction is known as vegetative propagation. I repeat that the plant part which is capable of producing new organism is known as vegetative propagule, and this whole process of giving rise to new plant from the existing plant is known as vegetative propagation. This is a term used for asexual reproduction of plants, and units of vegetative reproduction, or we can say vegetative propagules, include rhizomes for ginger, you can see in the very first figure, offset for water hyacinth, you can see the offset, this offset in the figure. Bulbil for agave, now this bulb like structure is known as bulbil for agave. There are more such examples given in your NCERT, you can read out from there, but here I can mention only 3, that is rhizome for ginger, offset for water hyacinth, and bulbil for agave. This was all about the types of asexual reproduction. Now coming up to next, a term is mentioned in your NCERT, that is zoospores. What do we actually mean by zoospore? As we mentioned that the asexually reproducing structure in plants is known as vegetative propagules. Similarly, the asexually reproductive structure in animals is known as zoospores. Now examples of zoospore are conidia for penicillin and gemmules for sponge. You can see 2 figures in the slide. Now this small bud like structure is known as conidia. This figure is of penicillium, and gemmules for sponge. These small circles within a bottle shaped figure is known as gemmule. This is a structure of sponge. I repeat that zoospores are the asexually reproducing structures in animals, and asexual reproductive structures in plant is known as vegetative propagules. Coming up to next, this was all about asexual reproduction. Now we'll be discussing sexual reproduction. As we discussed that asexual reproduction is a reproduction in which single parent is involved, or single parent leads to the production of new generation. Here sexual reproduction is a method of reproduction which involves more than one parent, or we can say 2 parents. This type of reproduction involves formation of male and female gamete either by the same individual or different individuals of opposite sex, which means that this process, this sexual reproduction involves the formation of male and female gamete, whereas in asexual reproduction it is not confirmed that gamete formation will take place or not. Basically, sexual reproduction is a reproduction which takes place in higher organisms, or in organisms which have to reproduce in unfavorable condition. But asexual reproduction is carried out by single cell organism, or we can say some simple structure organisms. This process, sexual reproduction, basically is an elaborate, complex and slow process, whereas asexual reproduction is very simple. Single organism divides or produces new organisms. Next point, fusion of male and female gamete in sexual reproduction results in offsprings that are not identical to the parent as well as among themselves. What does this point mean? That when a female and a male gamete, male sex germ, fuses in sexual reproduction, there results in formation of offsprings which will not be similar to the parent organism, as it involves gamete or germs of from two different individuals, as well as they won't be similar to their among themselves, that to the other offsprings, because every time the gene copying takes place, new combination of genes takes place, which lead to different characteristic in different individuals. I repeat that due to the fusion of male and female gamete in sexual reproduction, offsprings are not identical or not same to the parent as well as among themselves. When two gametes fuse, they form a zygote. When this zygote develops or get nourishment from a mother's body, it forms into a new organism which is labored out from mother's body through cervix or birth canal. So everyone, here I conclude my lecture. Thank you for watching, and if you have any kind of doubt, feel free to mention it in comment section. And yes, if you find this video a little informative, do like, share, comment and subscribe Biology Today, and stay tuned for next part of this chapter and more such videos. Thank you.